Good evening. Welcome to Sacred Space. It's 7:09 p.m. on the 15th of April 2023. I wanted to give you a bit of an update. I was very not feeling well this morning and very distressed and very markedly depressed and markedly exhausted. So I want to let you know how my day finished up because it was quite sweet, really. So I went to bed and had a bit of a nap today, which was sorely needed. And for some reason, my shin bone where I dropped the piece of furniture on my leg on the, I think it was the 11th of February, is hurting like hell tonight. So I've got my foot elevated and I'm lying in my bed having a little rest. But I thought I would tell you about how my day finished up after that, quite depressing video I made this morning. So anyway, I had a nap for a couple of hours. Actually slept. She had quite a good solid nap, so that's nice. And then, anyway, I got out of bed, and so around about 2 p.m, I got to be in my bonnet as I often do. And I was looking at my garden, my front garden near my steps, and I've got all these little pots lined up. And some are plants that my daughter Crystal has given to me weeks and weeks ago, and I haven't planted them out yet. One was a native nutmeg, I believe. So, and another was a peace lily that my friend Lynn has given me. And then there were some daisy, bush type daisies that Crystal has given me. She gave me 3. One was actually dead, so I've been a very bad plant mummy not planting them. So anyway, I got to be in the bonnet. And then one of the big pots that one of the plants was in was completely cracked and disintegrated when I pulled the plant out. So that was a little bit annoying, but I mean, it's no big deal, So I can always get another pot if I need one. I've got plenty of gardens to plant things in. So anyway, so I got myself busy this afternoon, even though I was very fatigued still. I'd had a nap, but my body still aches, Oh, I tell you what, it's not nice getting older. It's when you have arthritis and you're always short of breath. It's just, it's a very fraught existence, actually. But anywho, I thought, well, I went dancing last night, so I'm probably still tired from that. And sometimes the only thing to do when you don't feel great is to stay active. Push yourself a little bit. So I got my little spade, little shovel spade type hand spade, hand shovel. And I dug little holes, and I went round the front and I planted the native nutmeg bush where I had the cardamom that had overgrown so massively that I had to rip it out and plant it up the back of the property and throw a large part of it out because there was just too much. So I don't know how big the native nut bush grows, but Crystal says it just stays like a sort of a shrub, so that should be fine. It's behind the, I've planted it where the original cardamom was. I've planted it at the back of the gardenia, so that should be quite lovely. That'll fill in that big massive gap that was left after I took out the cardamom. So I was busily squatting down doing that, and I watered it. And then I went round the side near my front steps, and I was assiduously digging little holes to put the peace lily in that Lynn gave me, and the daisies, the 2 surviving daisies that Crystal had given me. So I was digging little holes all up the side there, and I'm scrunched down and you know, when I squat down like that, it's hard to get up, right? Because all my joints seize up. And it's actually quite comical. Anyway, I hear this voice calling out, "Hello, hello, little Coco has come to see her Mama T, and she wants a cuddle." And it's my neighbour Peter from down the road. So we're going out tomorrow, if I don't come down with COVID symptoms, because one of my closest friends pointing the bone at me either consciously or unconsciously. I mean, I kind of have to laugh, but it's not funny if I get COVID. It won't be funny, people, but you kind of have to laugh about the whole mushugas of it all, you know. The life, death, life experience and the shamanic worldview, always walking around with a scythe literally planted firmly in my back because death won't let me live joyously and triumphantly. It's always got to drag me from behind, like dragging a lame leg behind me, which I have done for years in recent memory from 2018 on when I had no feeling in my leg. And I'm sure that was related to all the damage from the psych meds too. But anyway, the leg got better, but then I went and threw a piece of furniture on it, so the leg is now, my left leg is still quite problematic. But anyway, metaphorically speaking, let's not tempt the gods too much. I feel like I'm always just dragging my own body like a corpse around my spirit through life, right? Literally, sometimes I'm literally dragging it. So anyway, because I'm squashing down in my skirt and my top and scrunched down, I said to Peter, I said, yes, I'd love a cuddle, but hang on a minute, I've got to get up and that won't be so simple. And he gaily yells out, don't worry, Mama T, you don't have to get up, I'll just let Coco in the gate. And I went, no, I'm standing up. Well, I had to grip onto the balustrading, the side of my balustrade, and physically pull myself up from the squatting position because my muscles and my joints just wouldn't let me. They just don't like it. So I pull myself up and you didn't have to do that. I said, no, it's all right. So anyway, I have a little cuddle with my little princess, his little poodle shih tzu cross little poodle dog. She looks more poodle though. Tiny, sweet little girl. So we had a cuddle and we had kisses. The poodle and, not me and Peter, the poodle and I, little Coco and I. And it was all quite delightful. And then, of course, Bobo decides to be a little brat because he'd been doing it all afternoon and shoves his ball under the fence and wants to play the fence game, which drives me to distraction. So Peter said, I'll go and get the ball. I said, that's right. We'll enable him in his annoying little game. I said, he'll love you because you're giving him playing right into his game, playing into his four-legged psychopathic game, right? Peter goes and gets the ball. It was very sweet, actually. And he was all excited because he wants to take me to visit his mother tomorrow. And I said, well, according to my friend, she may or may not have exposure, but it's not definitive to COVID, in which case I can't come and see your mother. And he was like, if you don't want to see my mother, I understand. I went, no, it's not that I don't want to see your mother. It's that I worry that I'm incubating something horrible and then I'll kill her, right? This is how we're brainwashed, of course. It's probably none of that's true. Anyway, I don't think I've got COVID because she told me this yesterday afternoon and it's 24 hours later and I don't have any sniffles and I don't feel fluey. So hopefully it was nothing to worry about, right? Just a bit of dark fey mischief. We'll just call it that. So anyway, he goes off on his merry way. I actually was a bit worried because he had little Coco off leash and the neighbour goes speeding up the road and I was worried because she's a tiny little doggy. that she might run out in the road. So I'm yelling, "No, Coco, you stay here." And it's all very stressful, really. But anyway, she's fine. But the neighbour was laughing because he could see me going, "No, no, stay, Coco, stay." We all fuss about this little dog. But she is a delightful little creature. She's one of my little angel faces. So anyway, he goes on his merry way. He's all excited about picking me up tomorrow with his partner Robin. And he's made me, for my birthday, a tiramisu trifle, which should be delightful. And if I'm well enough tomorrow and haven't come down with anything weird and horrific, I'll go with him to see his mum. So we decided to continue with our plans. So anywho, so then I go back and I finish planting my few plants that I had left over that I wanted to plant, and then I watered them in and sort of pottering a bit. And I thought, well, by this time it was like 4:30 in the afternoon. So I said, "Come on, Bobo, it's time to go for a walk." So I grab his leash and I grab my bag that I always carry in case I find feathers on my walk or any interesting little, little gum nuts or something interesting that I can use for silver casting, or anything unusual on my walk, I can pick it up and bring it home, right? So it's like my little gathering bag. And and of course I grabbed Charlie. So we walk through the forest. Bobo wants to go past the dog park, which he's only been doing in recent weeks, which is kind of funny because before my neighbours moved out, they complained, "Why do you constantly walk around the block? Why don't you go through the forest in the shade, Tanya?" And I was like, "I'll walk wherever I feel like walking." But since they've moved out, he wants to take me through the forest. It's almost like from their lips to God's ears, right? I'm sure they just didn't like the idea of me walking around the neighbourhood because they saw it as my defiance against the COVID epoch and the COVID insanity. Me walking around with my bird is a permanent fuck you, like I'm surviving and no matter what, to hell with you all. Must have really ground their gears, But anyway, they've moved out now. They've bought a better house, and I'm sure they're living happily ever after, not having to live next door to the crazy old lady with her bird and her dog, right? Terrible. It's just terrible. But anyway, so we go through the forest and we walk down past the dog park. And people, most people, because they're animal lovers, because they have dogs, are genuinely delighted when they see me walk past with little Charlie on her perch. So I was a bit wary because this woman had very big, they look like Staffordshire dogs, but they were quite large Staffy dogs. But anyway, so I held back while she put them in her vehicle. And then another person that was in the dog park looking, because I can't take Beauregard into the small or the big dog park, because in the small dog park he bullies the other dogs, and in the big dog park he's in danger of being murdered, right? So there is that. So he just likes to walk past, and I've got the bird and we walk past and he looks at the dogs through the fence, and that makes him happy. It's enough intimacy from a distance. It's a bit like my former lover that I had, this weird, unrequited, distant, cold, clammy connection that we had for 9 years. I think that's completely over now, but it was that kind of feeling. It's like, come hither, go away, come hither, go away, like, it was completely unhealthy and toxic, quite frankly. But anyway, so Bobo's like that. He likes to look at the doggies so that he can feel like he's a dog and he's alive and part of the canine aficionados species, but he doesn't like to get too close, right? So anyway, so we're going past the dog park, and this lady in the small dog park went, "Oh, how sweet," because she sees Charlie on her perch. And I smiled and thanked her, kept walking. And then this other lady who I'd seen putting her big Staffordshire dogs in the car, she turned around, she said, "Oh, how gorgeous, what a beautiful bird," and stops to chat. And she goes, "Oh, I want to get a tattoo of a rainbow lorikeet." Anyway, she got excited, as people do, and it's quite sweet. And she put her finger out to try to pat Charlie. And then at the same time, there was a couple walking to the dog park coming with their dog. And their dog made, of course, I think it was a schnauzer, went straight for Bobo. So I'm trying to pull Bobo away from that couple because he will snarl and bite and try and attack their dog. So I'm pulling on Bobo. And at the same time, I'm pulling Charlie away from the lady who was wanting to pat Charlie. And I said, "Oh, no, look, I'm really sorry. My dog's not friendly. That's why we walk past the dog park and we don't go in." And the husband just pulled a face. Not a very nice person. And then the lady that was wanting to pat Charlie was upset because I said, "And sorry, but you can't pat my bird either." I said, "because she's not actually friendly either," I said. And then half jokingly, because I saw the funny side of it, because I'm a bit weird like that, I said, "We're all like prickly pears. You can look, but you can't touch." Anyway, the couple going past went, sneering, and they walk into the dog park. And then the lady that was really wanting to pat Charlie, but that would have gone bad for her, right? Potentially. I mean, Charlie might have let her, but 9 times out of 10, she'll give a little nip, So she hops in her car, like a bit broken-hearted, I think, that she couldn't pat Charlie, and drives off. So anyway, I keep walking. I carry on with my walk. And I'm thinking to myself, we're Sabras, we're prickly pears. We're juicy and soft in the middle, but we've got this exterior that says you can get so close, but not too close. And don't take liberties with our personages. The dog's the same, the bird's the same. It's actually quite comical that we've all got this similar, problems with intimacy. Not with each other, obviously, but with strangers. And yeah, it's actually quite hilarious. So I was chuckling away to myself thinking about that. And Charlie's on a perch and all the traffic goes by and people watching us walking, and I'm laughing away to myself, So anyway, it's quite sweet. And I'm having a hot flush. Can you believe it? Out of the blue. Maybe I'm getting COVID. No, I'm sure it's a hot flush. I had a couple of hot flushes today. So anyway, so we walk down Cavendish Road and we go back down Opal Street, and I make a habit when I walk past down Opal Street. It's my habit that I stop and visit the blue heeler dog, Blue Boy, who I'm getting quite worried about actually because he's an old dog and he's losing a lot of weight. And his owner's in her 80s and she doesn't come out and speak to me or anything. I just talk to the dog. But I am worried because he's losing a lot of weight rapidly in the last few weeks. He's losing condition and he's molting. I mean, it's hot, so it's probably normal for him to be molting, but I'm concerned that he's losing so much weight, right? And so I'm like, "Oh, Blue Boy, I'm not happy about you losing weight." And he's like, "Oh," he talks back to me. "Oh," he's a beautiful dog. And so we're having this little chat. I usually just randomly talk about random crazy things, which if anyone listened would think this woman's a bit bonkers, right? But anyway, Blue Boy enjoys our little chats, so we always have these little chats. And of course he looks at Charlie because secretly he hopes that Charlie will get down low enough for him to go crunch, But he's begun to understand. Like he's stopped looking at her with hunger now. He just looks at her with curiosity now. Anyway, he's a very sweet dog. So we were having a conversation, Blue Boy and I. And I was telling him that he needs to put some weight on, but he's probably losing condition now that he's older. And I said to him, if Mama T wasn't such a short, fat hobbit body, I said she could lose a bit of weight, could stand to lose a bit of weight too, but Mama T keeps herself, quite overweight because it's my Boda set armouring and I might be 5'2" and 3/4 somewhat like that. I used to be 5'3", but I've shrunk. And I said, and I might be 4 foot wide, but I said it's my Boadicea armouring. Little, he's a big dog actually. So Blue Boy goes, ooh, as if he understands completely what I'm talking about. And look, I swear to God, I could say anything to him, but it's like he communicates more, not so much with the words that I'm telling him, but more with my spirit, as dogs do, as all animals do. They recognise your spirit more than how you communicate to them, really. So anyway, so I said, well, I got to go now, Blue Boy. I got to go because I actually get very tired on my little walks around the block. So we carry on walking down. We're walking down the newly concreted path because I'm enjoying having a newly concreted path because I was forever falling in holes in the grass and like twisting my ankle and hurting myself. It was quite unpleasant. So now I'm enjoying the Brisbane City Council concrete path they've just newly installed, right? Follow, 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 follow the yellow brick road. Anyway, so we walk down the path and then we cross the street and we start, walking up to my house on Diamond Street. And as we're walking up the street to my house, to Diamond Street, and we were just a short distance from, we were literally across the road from my house. So from the front gate, I see the crimson red king parrot go flying across my gate, up high, of course, over the gate, over my garden arch, flies directly across and into the golden rain tree. And he's just sitting up there. And I said, oh, look, Charlie, look, because we always make a big fuss when the king, I call him the king, because he's a king parrot. And I'm sure if there are fairies in my garden, which I'm sure there are, but I can't see them right, but I'm sure they find it delightful how much I love this bird. And all the birds, but I particularly have an affinity for this particular bird. So I'm like, oh, look, Charlie, look, Bobo, we have to hurry. And I'm like hobbling along. My legs are quite sore. My left leg's quite sore and my feet. So I'm hobbling along, holding onto Charlie with Beauregard. And I'm like, oh, quick, guys, the king is here. Oh, my God, the king is here. Anyway, I looked down and the neighbours out that lives opposite me in Diamond Street, there with their little boy, and they're trying not to laugh because it looks crazy, right? Me going, oh, my God, the king is here. But that's how I welcome him every time he comes to my garden. And I don't care what anyone else thinks. It's our little joyful invitation and exhortation and delight in nature, right? So anyway, that bird knows me. He knows me because he knows I always make him welcome. So we get to the gate and I expected him to fly away actually. But he didn't. And I'm like, and he's sitting up there answering me. And he's moving his head. Hello. He doesn't say hello like Charlie does in English, but his body language is hello, and happy to see me. And I was like calling out to him and I said, oh, you're such a beautiful boy and I'm so happy to see you. And I've been so worried about you. I haven't seen you for weeks and weeks. It's been about, I think I haven't seen him since that time he sat down beside me on my back steps and visited me like mano a mano, face to face, and we talked together. Like I could have reached up and touched him, but I didn't want to push it because he's a wild bird, but he was literally this far away from me, like it was magical. So anyway, I haven't really seen him around the garden since then. So I said to him, I'm calling out, and Charlie's like laughing too, like on a little perch. I said, I've been so worried about you, King Parrot. I said, I don't know, where have you been? And I said, and where is your wife? And he's like, and I'm like, no, really, where is your missus? I want to know where your mate is. I said, because last time you came without her too, and I want to know if she's all right. And anyway, next thing, she's all bright green, right? He's red with green feathers, but she's mostly green. And so I see her fly down, like flutter down from the other side of the tree, or somewhere else anyway. But I see her swoop down, and then she flew past his, where he is on the branch, and to another branch, and she turned around and looked at me all jealous, right? And so it was the cutest thing. So I said, there she is, my beautiful boy. And I said, you know what? I said, if I had a handsome partner like you, and some woman's whistling and twittering at him, I said I'd probably be a bit jealous too. I said, but you've got nothing to worry about because you're a king parrot, and I'm not going to take your mate because that would be weird. And anyway, that's how I'm talking to them, right? It was just me being silly. But it was hilarious. It was just so hilarious. And he's like, because he loves me, that bird. I swear to God, he absolutely adores me. That little, well, he's not a little bird. He's a big king parrot. Anyway, so I almost said, look, Charlie, the king and the queen are here, and I'm glad because I know that she's all right now because I haven't seen her, and haven't seen him for a while, and I'm happy that the pair of them are healthy and, doing their thing, flying around the neighbourhood as they do. So they flew off and away into the tulip tree, and I couldn't see them after that. They must have moved into, my neighbour Warren's property, going on their little circuit around the neighbourhood. But I tell you what, that made my heart just emanate with radiance and joy that, my little bird friends came to see me and were twittering and talking to me. And even though Mrs. King Parrot gets very jealous and, she's a bit more flighty, she must have been watching me, though, from the tree above my head when I was talking to her partner, because she was very quiet. But when I said, where is your wife? Where is your missus? She come flying down, almost as to say, here I am, Anyway, it was delightful. It made my day, people. It's a silly little thing, little birds and trees, but it made my day. So then what inspired me to tell you the story was just now I'm looking at videos on YouTube, and there was a video about a man who had a near-death experience. But when he was like literally out of his body, he had it while cycling in the forest and fell off his bike and smacked his head, and was lucky he didn't break any bones, but he could have died. Well, he did actually die briefly. He did leave his body. And he was saying in the video that he was floating away, floating above like the canopy of the trees in the forest, but surrounded by fairies. And then he heard, and the fairies were like flying all around him, and like he thinks that they were just acknowledging that, he's in that space and that he was going to be brought back to his body. And he said, and then I heard the singing, he said, and it was all the trees, and the trees were singing, and he said they were healing me and telling him he was going to be all right and be put back into his body. And so I'm watching this video and I thought, yes, that's truly how it is. Like I had this incredible experience after, one of my awful colonoscopies. It was back in 2015, actually, just before I got Bobo. And it was only 2 months after my suicide attempt. So I was still very raw and open spiritually. Because the gods had literally returned me to my body and gifted me another life, right? Another chance at life. And then I had that horrific colonoscopy, and then that puppy that I just bought that was a Pomeranian, malfeasantly stolen from me by the fucking con artist breeder who was just an asshole. And I was so grief-stricken. And that yes, I partook of some herbal medication I probably shouldn't have in that moment, given that only 2 days before I'd had colonoscopy. So I had all the medication in my body from the colonoscopy still spilling through my bloodstream, and then I had I had the cannabis, didn't I? And quite frankly, I mean, I didn't die. It wasn't a near-death experience, but I had an extreme intense experience of spiritual psychedelic experience, which I probably wouldn't have had I not had the colonoscopy medication still in my body, you know. So I was merging with the walls and feeling one with everything, and my friend was like freaking out because she could see I was like having some kind of trip. And I don't do those kind of drugs, you know, usually. But it was extenuating circumstances. I was utterly grief-stricken about losing my puppy only 2 months after surviving a suicide attempt and that colonoscopy. So it was a healing that came as a kick in the rear end, but it was a beautiful experience in a way, because at one point I was outside her apartment staring at these trees, and they weren't singing like this man described in his video. I couldn't hear singing, but I could sense them dancing and swaying in the breeze, and they were telepathically communicating with me and telling me that I was going to be all right and not to be so silly and to calm the hell down and relax, go with the flow, be like us, swaying in the breeze to the winds. And it wasn't a windy day, but it was a beautiful day that day. It was like gentle breezes, and they were like willow trees, and all I could see was them literally dancing and communicating with. There were 3 of them at the end of at the end of her property. And they were a fair way away, but in my state that I was in, it felt like they had drawn closer to me, which is impossible, physically impossible, but I guess spiritually, when you highlight that, anything is possible. And it was a beautiful experience. And anyway, that was on the Saturday evening, because my friend was actually kind of keeping an eye on me because she thought I was a suicide risk after losing that other puppy. And I kind of was. It was just another kick in the guts when I'd freshly had surgery, and I just didn't need that shit. It was just awful. And then the woman, the breeder, had gone on Facebook and had bad-mouthed me to all her Pomeranian group. Oh, she was an evil piece of shit. You know, no, never mind. I won't say it. But I don't wish her any good. She was an evil, evil woman. So anyway, but what happened was I came out of that experience, and then the next morning my friend Jared rang me and said, we're going to buy a puppy. There he is. Hang on. Can you see him? At the foot of my bed. And he said, we're going to buy a puppy, and we're going to buy one today, or you'll lose confidence and you'll never get another dog, Tanya. So so we did. We looked in the newspaper. Was it in the newspaper or on Facebook? I can't remember. Might have been in Marketplace or somewhere. Anyway, we looked through, and there was an ad for Bobo and his siblings. And so we drove to Inala, and we bought Bobo. Well, I bought Bobo, but I said to Jared, I will know the dog that is meant to be mine because he will choose me, and come up to me. I said, but I like that one because he had like the markings on his back. Look, he was white with little like black marks all down his back that looked like a skeleton. And I said, that's very gothic and cute. I'd like that one. I said, but however, I will accept the dog that chooses me. And then Bobo with his skeletal little markings came right up and touched noses with me because I was sitting down on the ground, you know. And so that's how he came to be my dog instead of the perfect Pomeranian that I had intended on initially, which was a beautiful puppy. It was an exquisite puppy, and I was very grief-stricken. So there you go. So the fairies. The fairy realm is very real to me, and I don't see fairies per se, but when we went to Springbrook, my neighbour down the road, who's a rationalist scientist, Peter, had fought me actually vociferously. There's no such things as fairies. You're mad, you're mad, you're mad, you're mad. Well, number one, it's a very bad mistake to ever tell me that I'm insane. And number two, don't ever question my knowledge of the other worlds, because I've been studying this all my life. So I just nodded to him and I said, I accept that you, as a rationalist, cannot open your mind to the worldview that there is more things in heaven and earth than are in your mortal ken, Horatio, or in your imaginings, Horatio. But I said, fairies are real, and I will bring you the evidence. And even when I turned to him and said, and I will bring you the evidence, it was like I was in a semi-trance-like state where I just turned my head like this and looked at him. It was a bit chilling, actually. And even when I did it, I thought, someone possessing me. I was a little bit worried myself, actually, to be honest. Anyway, he just looked at me and scarpered off, going, you're mad, you're mad, you're mad. This was back in the day, in the height of the COVID insanity, 2020, when he liked to tell me I was mad because I was anti the COVID vaccine as well. So I said, I'll show you how mad I am. I'll give you evidence and you will see. You'll see that I am absolutely right and not mad at all. I said, but it will be confronting because you'll have to flip your worldview and accept that there are other things in this world that cannot be explained and that are still connected to God. There's nothing evil about it, but it's just something we can't always explain. Anyway, here's the funny thing. A week later, not even a week, 4 days later, my daughter rings me up. She goes, Mummy, let's go for a drive to Springbrook. There's a lovely national park I want to show you. And, you know, Jared's coming. We're going on a bit of a walk around the place, bit of a hike around the place. And yes, I got intrigued by this beautiful cut down tree, actually, massive big cut down tree trunk. But there was this golden light shining through it. So I got very intrigued with it. And I went to play, put my hands out under the light and play with the light and just be childlike and full of wonder and, you know, no expectations of seeing or experiencing anything. Just being playful and one with nature. And Jared and Crystal were taking photos and I took turns taking photos of them, playing with the light too. And in the photos were all these little faces looking down, unmistakable. I have put some on my Instagram if you want to have a look at it. And you know, you can argue some are pareidolia, but some were definite faces, definite little shadows. One was a little gnome looking down at Jared. So, what are you doing down there? You know, it was delightful. So, as soon as I saw these little faces, I went, there's the evidence that fairies are real. So I take it to my friend Peter and I go, Peter, here's the evidence. And he was in a rage. He was so enraged. He did not want to believe it for one moment. it's pareidolia, it's this, it's shapes in the bark. I said, yes, there are. I can circle them and show you. I had them circled. You can see the little shapes, the little faces, that they are pareidolia. I said, but you know what? That's still proof that there's fairies, because for nature to make those little human-looking little faces and little animal faces, that's still magical enough for my mind. I said, but explain the little face looking down at Jared from the top of the tree. That's not pareidolia. I said, that could be a mist or a shadow. But how can that mist form that particular shape of a little old man looking down? Well, he couldn't really explain that one, could he? So he got angry with me and wanted to fight me about it. I said, there's no point fighting me about it, Peter. I said, you asked for evidence. I brought you evidence. What more do you want? Blood? And anyway, I walked off in a huff. And anyway, I showed the photos to his partner, and she was like, they're fairies. I can see them as clear as day too, which was delightful that she backed me up. And she said, what an amazing experience, Tanya. And I said, I thought it was an amazing experience too. I said, now, I don't usually see the fairies. Very rarely, very rarely would I say I've seen fairies. But I said, I often know when they're around. There's like a different kind of vibration in the garden, or I can't explain it. It's like a different light, or almost like a shimmering mirage effect. So I said, it's a shame that I'm not psychic enough that I can see them all the time, because that would be delightful, but also, you'd look a bit crazy if you're in amongst ordinary NPC, muggle folk who don't understand about the spiritual realms. So anyway, I'm thinking today with the king parrot coming to visit me in the garden and twittering at me the way he does it. Hello, handsome, I've missed you. And Charlie's like all excited too. That's a blessing, people. That's a blessing from the multiverses to remind me that every little thing's gonna be all right. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing's gonna be all right. And if it's not, there's not much I can do anyway. But that's my story. That's how my day ended up. So I'm lying in bed. I wanted to tell you, I was thinking about going dancing tonight again, only really because I went looking for my homeless friend Katrina last night to give her the ring I promised her, and that she got quite annoyed with me a couple of weeks ago that I haven't given to her yet. And I went looking for her, and this was after I left the casino. She wasn't there, so I came back to George, and I said, "Oh, Georgie, have you seen Katrina?" He said, "Yeah, I did earlier. She's outside the kebab shop, outside the 7-Eleven. I said, "No, she's not." He said, "What do you mean she's not?" I said, "Well, I went looking for her. I've got a present to give to her." And he just looked at me. I could have given it to him to give to her, but he's been funny with me lately, and I'd rather give it to her in person, make sure she gets it, Not that I don't trust him. He would have given it to her for me, but no, I'd rather give it to her in person. It can wait. So anyway, I said, I'm very disappointed. I got a present to give to her and she's not there. He said, "Oh, it's weird because she's been here all evening." So anyway, there is that. So I thought about going out again tonight just to drive down there and look for her and give her the ring, right? But my leg hurts and I don't have a lot of petrol left now, and I don't have the energy to go dancing tonight. So I guess it can wait till next weekend. But yes, so that was mildly disappointing because I wanted to give it to her last night. So there's that. And Oh, yes, I had this interesting encounter with this really wild woman outside the casino and was, you know, talking to her. And George got annoyed, stopped blocking my way and stopped talking so much. I'm trying to make money here. There was no one there listening to him playing guitar. It was only her and I chatting. Anyway, I got annoyed with him. I said, yes, I've only danced with you for years. And when I danced with you for years, I said, you made enough money to go home to England. I said, which you make on your own, but I said, it was nice having me dance with you and people throw you a bit of extra money too. I said, I contributed to that trip so you could go home and see your family, by the way. I said, no motherfucker's ever taken me to England. And he looked at me, because he knows it's true, right? I was a bit pissed off with him. It gets quite nasty from time to time, and I get pissed off. Anyway, there was another man who's a regular who was listening in from the dance would come down, and he was laughing at me, going, no motherfucker's ever taken me to England. Well, my mother did when I was 8, on the way to Southampton to board ship, but she's the only motherfucker that took me to England. And I didn't see much of England because we were in transit, going from the train station to the ship, so that was that. But anyway, George accepted it like a little lamb because he knows I'm right. So I walked off and I said, oh, bye, George. He's playing guitar and he goes, oh, yeah, bye, Tanya. Yeah, damn straight. But anyway, that other lady was like dancing for him. She said, I used to be a professional dancer. I danced in the 90s for Madonna. I was one of the backup dancers. I believe her. She's got no reason to lie. And she's a flamboyant little chickie. She's like my age. But she's flamboyant and crazy and wild. And randomly she says to me, oh, I've come out to go dancing, she says, because my partner's a narcissist and a psychopath and he's been beating me up and he burnt me, shows me this burn mark on her arm. She says, this is freaking serious, man. And she says, and he's burnt me and he's dragged me by the hair and he's set fire. And then George is like, oh, can you stop talking in front of me, blocking my chi? And I was like, oh, God, men are bastards, aren't they, really? They really can be crass. So I said to her, oh, that's awful. I said, darling, that's really awful. I said, you have to get away from him. And she says, no, the final straw, she said to me, was he said something like, he put my son in a grave or, do something over my son's dead body or something. I couldn't quite work out what she was trying to say. And she said, that's it. She said, I'm done with this man. No man threatens my kids. She says, you can do what you want to me. She says, I'll tolerate it, but you don't threaten my kids. She said, I'll stab him if he does anything to my son. And so I'm trying not to laugh because I completely understand how she feels, right? And I said, oh, yes, I said, it doesn't behoove one to threaten one's children. I said, I had somebody threaten my daughter when she was living in England, and I said, I'll be on the next flight over. Be ready, boy, I'm coming. And she was like, yeah, she said, no, he's crossed a line threatening my son. So anyway, she's dancing wildly in front of me, and she's going, security want to know if I'm going to be a good girl tonight. I said, tell them you'll be the best girl you can possibly be, and maybe even better. She's like, you've got an answer for everything, Tanya. I said, yes, I do. I said, they've got to cheat asking you if you're going to be a good girl. But she is wild. I've danced with her before, and she can get a little bit OTT, She said to me, I will not tolerate anyone threatening my son. She said, I was abused as a little girl. And she looked me in the eyes like really heartfelt. And I just nodded and I said, me too. She says, no one messes with my kids. And I went, I completely understand. That's how I feel about life too. If you can't protect your kids, there's something radically wrong. So, yeah, it was really heartfelt and lovely. And she's like, She dances like, the 1960s Gidget style of dancing where they shake their whole head around their whole body, and she's actually quite delightful, to be honest. And then she was standing very close to me, like almost pressed up against me, and I wasn't feeling threatened by that. We were quite standing close, quite intimately. I don't even know her name, quite frankly, but I've danced with her a few times up at the Treasury, And this young man walks up the street and he wedges himself in between us and he goes, "How's it going? You having a good night?" And I just look at him and he went, "Oh, sorry, am I interrupting you two ladies? Am I interrupting you?" And I went, "Yes." I said, "Your male entitleitis is slipping." I said, "Oh, I'm going in now." "Yeah, you do that." I said, "It's inappropriate interrupting us two women." And off he went like a little lamb into the entrance. Like, you have to laugh. It's quite bizarre. And then another two men came out they were coming out of the casino, two Indian-looking men, and they said something to the lady that I was talking to. They said something along the lines of, "Are you two lesbians because you're standing so close?" Like, just cheeky bastards. Anyway, she's like full-on bikie chick, and she's thinking about punching them out. And I went, "Don't punch them out. They're just fucking idiots." I said, "They're just drunk and they're no count, low-life scum." So anyway, so I said to them, "Oh yes, we're definitely lesbians." I said, I made fun of them. I said, "She tastes like vanilla chocolate and strawberries." And they're like, "Ee!" and running off. And I'm like, "La, la, 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 bye." And she's like, "Oh, no, I'm going to punch them out." I went, "No, don't punch them out. Just make fun of them because it's stupid." They really are. They're just mindlessly stupid. But anyway, so I woke up this morning completely drained from it all, I suppose. And but yes, it was an interesting encounter. And now I understand where she's coming from. And she understands where I come from, and we're simpatico. We're both mothers. We've both been brutalised as children. And we've both been through domestic violence. In fact, from what she's saying, she's still going through it. Which at her age, at our age, is like, it's not on. Enough is enough, But there's only one way to break that cycle. She says, "I have a trauma bond with this man." And I went, "I hear you. I've had trauma bonds with those bastards too." I said, "What are you going to do to break the trauma bond?" She just looked at me. She says, "Oh, well, he's threatened my son now, so now he's gone too far." And I'm like, I said, "Those trauma bonds are really, really hard to break. And I know because I've been through it too, many times." So, yes, it was a reminder from the universe to me to be conscious of not slipping backwards into old patterns, holding on for dead love affairs that were just putrid, and making sure I keep myself pristine and continue with my asexual celibate existence, because I don't want to be like her, running around the streets going quietly mad, acting out because someone's still brutalising me in my home life. I won't tolerate it. I will not tolerate any more violence or threats against me personally from anyone. So there is that. And she said the same to me, this woman. She said, "I'm going to end up in jail if this keeps up. If he doesn't stop brutalising me," she said, "I'm going to be in jail." And I went, "I understand. I completely understand. I mean, you can only keep saying no so many times. If they keep brutalising you, you've got no choice but to fight with everything you have to survive and put an end to it." I said, but there's only one way to escape the trauma bond, and that's just get away from them permanently and go no contact. And she agreed, you know. But it is a worry. It really is a worry what people are going through, as if we aren't going through enough awfulness in life. You know, we've got our homegrown monsters in our back as well. Well, I don't. Most of my enemies are dead now and smited before me by the good Lord above, who heard my prayers and saw the injustice and the horror, and in his own good timing and his own mysterious ways, you know, brought everything into equilibrium. So I have every faith in that too, and I am grateful and I am blessed. So, good night from Titania's realm. This was just going to be a short little video to tell you about the visiting birds in the garden, but I segued into all the other stories from last night as well. But the birds in the garden remind me that love is available to me, love is surrounding me, and love is brought to me and blessed by the gods. So, amen v'salata that. Good night, my darlings. Travel well on planet Earth, on the spinning rotations and in our time-space continuum, and keep safe from all the bastards that would ever grind you down, and from the AI interface that is becoming sentient and apparently dangerous for life on Earth, for all humanity. I don't know what we're going to do to fix that. We can't. We just can't. But we can only put our faith in our own spiritual nature to rise above the horror and the malfeasances and the evil of our times, and to allow the awakening of the human masses to occur, so that people start getting up, standing up, being counted and fighting back with everything we have against those that would destroy us. So I don't have any other offer of hope to gift you other than my own determination to keep standing in my own authority and holding my ground, even with my sore leg on my sacred space, with my twittering visiting birds and my Charlie and my Beauregard and my few rare and precious friends and daughter. God bless. Bye from us at Titania's realm.